Alrighty, hello everybody. This is episode 2 of So You Want to Play Competitive Fortnite. We're going to be talking about mouse sensitivity, the different Fortnite settings within, talking about sensitivity and all that fun stuff. So where do we start? If you've never seen a mouse before or have never touched a mouse before, just throw your hands on it, however which way. My hands just chill like this. I use the Logitech G502. Give you a little slow, like a preview in it. I put all the weights in mine because I'm a psycho and I like it heavy. But it's personal preference. Do whatever you want. So how do you hold the mouse? Just depends. Just slap your hand on top. Some people like put like more than one fingers. I used to put my middle finger on my scroll wheel, so it was like a different like bind for like a different finger. But I mean, you can do whatever you want. But so next we'll be talking about how do you move the mouse? So if you prefer moving the mouse with your wrist, let's say the mouse is in my hand and you're just moving it like this. So here's like a side angle, just back and forth. The mouse is right here. You're a wrist aimer. You might be more you might be more predisposed to high sense than you are low sense. Than if you're somebody that aims with your entire arm, your arm's going back and forth. So if you move your arm like this, or if you move your wrist like this, that means high sense or low sense. So high sense, wrist, low sense, elbow, basically. So if you come from a game like CSGO, Valorant, or any other FPS, you might be used to slow sense or low sense. So you're already moving your arm like this. So in Fortnite, you're probably going to be like that anyway, because you're already used to it. It just makes more sense. And then if you come from a MOBA, or you're just somebody who just uses a mouse like just for browsing, then you're probably just moving with your wrist. So it might be more easier for you to just stick to the high sense side. So after you've figured which one you are already used to, or if you aren't used to any, we can just talk about the pros and cons of both. So for low sense Fortnite players, they usually have incredible aim. It just makes more sense. You can aim easier because you're not moving as much. You are moving as much, but like you don't have to be as precise with your movements because it just feels like you're more in control. While with a high sense player, your aim in is a lot more precise because if you move like a centimeter on high sense or an inch for you Americans and and you move just a centimeter over, your guy might end up doing 45 twirls around. But if you're in low sense and you move a centimeter over, it might just be a difference between a 200 pump and a 190 pump or lever charge, whatever the meta is right now. But both of them have their pros and cons. So con for a low sense player would be your build-in, your editing, and your piece control, which is really big right now in the meta. It will be weaker or be more of a harder time to get better at because you have to move your arm far more. You have to fucking when you crank the 90s, you're slamming all the shit off your desk and fucking throwing it across the room because you need like 45 feet of desk space just to move your arm like back and forth like that. While with a Hisense player, I can buy a cheap ass mouse pad from Walmart that's smaller than my hand and be good to go. Plus, I can just keep the rest of my desk dirty because I don't even need it. So added plus here and there. But for Hisense, the issue we have is that our aiming is weaker. It'll take longer for us to get good or average at aiming because we have to focus more on our precise movements. We can't mess up at all. There's no room for error because it's the difference between landing a 200 and landing a 30 is just a little bit of error. So you have to practice your aim much more than someone of a low sense because your room for error is a lot bigger. If you were going to hit someone for 200 but you miss and hit them for a 30, that means that you're like literally moving like I can't even show you because my arms are too big, but like you're literally moving like 30 centimeters or something like that. So to recap, for low sense, um, it'd be easier to get good or godlike aim than it would be for building, but for high sense, it's easier to get godlike or good building, editing, and piece control than aiming. So that's the trade-off both of them have. So which one should you pick? Up to you. If you come from CS:GO and you're already below sense and your aiming's already godlike, then you just need to work on your building, editing, and moving, piece control, all that. So you can raise your sense up just a little bit, or you can just keep the same as your CS:GO. Most people raise it up a bit because of, it's Fortnite's on like every FPS where you just go. You have to always crank and look around and do stuff like that. But if you're coming from MOBAs and you don't really move your mouse at all, then high sense might be better. But Sorry, it's important to know the differences and what you're already comfortable at. So now we talk about the pros and cons. Let's talk about some people's senses right now. So right now we have, I just have a few pros here that are like famous and a lot of people know about. So first we have the fish, the man himself. He plays on a DPI, which is your mouse sensitivity, which is different for everybody. I think the base DPI that every mouse comes at is 800, but don't quote me on that. But usually you can download an application from your mouse. So for Logitech, like I have like the G502, you can download the LG Hub, which gives you like the DPI and you can bind macros, which is I don't think you can allow to do that on Fortnite, but on some things you are. I don't know. But anyway, it has a bunch of fucking customizable features and shit like that. So DPI for the fish is 800 and his in-game sensitivity, which I'll show you here, is 8.8%. So his is more to the right. And basically, to calculate eDPI, which is just a way Fortnite players measure or people in general measure their DPI, is you do 800 times 8.8%. So for him, it's 71. So then Savage, he plays on a DPI of 1450 with an in-game sense of 7.7%. His eDPI is 112. Now I'm not going to tell you the DPIs in percentage because you can just Google that. But Booga plays on an eDPI of 48, which would be considered low, while Savage is considerably higher. Clicks is a unique case, and he's also a good example of being comfortable. He plays on a different X and Y sense. The reason? I have no idea. Maybe it's comfortable. Maybe he has an easier time flicking left and right fast and down and up slow. But he plays on an X of 8.7% and a Y of 6.3, both of them with a DPI of 800. So this makes his X eDPI 70 and his Y eDPI 50. So he's like a little bit of both, high, low, for different angles. He finds it's comfortable, so I'm not gonna judge him because he's a lot fucking better than me. So next we have Kanata. This man's an animal. He plays on last checked sense. He plays on a DPI of 3200 with an in-game of 4.5%, making an eDPI of 144. Then Young Calc plays on an eDPI of 61, Epic Whale 56, Mongrel 72. So with just these examples, we can kind of say that high sense is 70, 80 plus EDPI, and lower can be, below 70 or below 80, depending on, your perspective or whatever. So if you wanted to watch someone high sense, you might watch Benji Fishy, Savage, Kanata. If you want to watch someone low sense, you might watch Bugga, Clicks, Epic Whale. So you want to make sure that whatever your sense is, you're watching that person. Because then you can, notice what they do, how they play. If they have a mouse cam, you can notice what they do. An important thing with high sense, because I'm a high sense player, can't really show you, but let's say my wallet here is my mouse like this, and I'm playing. And if you go too far left, sometimes like you'll strain out your wrist like this. Like your wrist can only go so far, but you can pick up your mouse, so pick it up off the ground and move it back. Usually, in most cases, pros tell you not to do this, but Simple, who's a crazy fucking CS:GO player, C1MPLE, if you don't know, he always picks up his mouse to recenter it. He plays on a ridiculous high sense, and he's a very famous player. So if he can do it, then we can do it. But talking about pros, I might as well throw my name in there, even though I'm nowhere near to a pro. I play on an eDPI of 90, which means I'm in the middle between Savage, Mongrel, and Benji. Um, but two most important things is don't be afraid to change your sense. Okay, I used to play on 2000 DPI by like 10%. Okay, that was like 200 plus DPI, which is way too high for sure. But even like now you can see that I'm like just barely moving my mouse. But make sure that you can. It's okay to change your sense. I've already changed my sense a million times. It's completely fine because you want to find what works for you. But the last thing you want to do is, let's say I, fucking change my sense. I'm not gonna make them equal to 13 and 10, and then I'm like, all right, I'm playing and I whiff my shot, and instead of hitting the 200, I hit a 30, and I go, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And I switch back. I actually have to switch back, so I'll forget, and then I'll miss my shot in game and be so confused. But you'll miss your shot completely, and you'll be like, well, this just isn't working at all. But if you're gonna change your sense, you have to practice it more than just one day or like 3 days. You should aim for 5 days to a week. I'm practicing that one sense, And then you can see after that period if it's like a good sense or not. Because realistically, you shouldn't find your best sense right away. And then the second thing that is really important is that you have to be, finding your balance, but you have to be aware of how you're shooting. So let's say, this is somebody here and I'm over here and I flick and I miss and I hit over here. So this means I overshot my shot by a little amount. So maybe instead of going to 7.5, I go down to 7. And then when I flick, I'm landing right here. Okay, pretty close. Now let's go down farther. Now I'm at 6.5. Oh, now I hit directly on. But then let's use this target as an example, and I flick and I hit here. So I move it up to 7, and then I'm like just on the edge. This would be like, I don't know, like what, 100? And the difference in a box is only dealing 100 damage is enough. You need at least be doing over like 150. That way you can switch to your other gun and then shoot them. But let's say that I'm landing like right here, so I move it up a bit to 7.5, and then I'm flicking directly on. So you be conscious of switching like your sense and practicing like if you're overshooting or undershooting or whatnot. And then now let's just talk about the targeting and some of the sense stuff in here. So first off, let's say I made my sense 14 and I will have to go back. So I want to get to 7.5, get as close as possible. That was actually pretty good, but let's go a little ahead. For example, 8.3, obviously this isn't what I want. You just click on it, click the left arrow key, or the right arrow key, and then you can just slide up. And this is a much easier way than fucking around with it for 20 minutes. Targeting sensitivity means like when you're aiming in what your sense will be. So, this sense would be different than this sense for most people. Aiming in, not aiming in. I like to keep mine the same because I'm on high sense and I need to get used to those movements. I need to know them by heart. So if I'm in a panic situation, I won't miss my shots. But even then, my aiming isn't, impeccable. I'm not fucking Tifu over here. I'll put this map in the description, by the way. But that's it for the target, and the scope sensitivity is the same thing, but if this was a sniper, when I zoom in, it'd be this different sense. I like having the sense the same for me, but that's just me. I don't know what any of this shit is either. And the controller, yeah, good luck. I don't know any of that. But I think that is everything. Next video will be something regarding building, maybe like some building tips on how to 90 and all that, fun stuff. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Um, I think I've planned out like 70 of these or even more. So I'm hoping to eventually get to a point kind of like your fellow Arab or Arab, or the fuck you saying. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoy. Have a good one.